Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire. And when I'm not interviewing inspiring entrepreneurs, I'm listening to Stephanie O'Brien on the Moved by Purpose podcast.
I care about you even though you're being irresponsible. I will manage myself. I don't know what you're going to do with you. And then if you handle that well or mishandle that, I have boundaries. I will let you know what I'm going to do as a result of what you've done. I'm not going to try to make you do stuff because I never believe I can control other people.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
Hey, it is Stephanie O'Brien, and it is your host for the Moved by Purpose podcast. And today I'm really excited for the guest. I've mentioned this church quite a few times in my Mindset Mastery or 13 Steps to Master Your Mindset episode. I mentioned Bethel Church as a resource for helping you kind of break free of some strongholds and other things that may healing some soul wounds and other things that may keep you stuck or hold you back or keep you in a pattern. And I'm a big fan of Bethel Church. And so today's guest is Pastor Danny Silk, who serves on the senior leadership team of both Bethel Church in Redding, California, and Jesus Culture in Sacramento, California. And he has been the family pastor at Bethel Church for over 16 years. And Pastor Danny Silk is also the president and co-founder of the ministry Loving on Purpose, which is a ministry that serves families and communities worldwide. And he is the author of multiple books, including one of the two that we're going to talk about, Keep Your Love On, and then his newest one that will be coming out in November, Foundations of Honor. So without further delay, we are going to welcome Danny to the show. Welcome to the show, Danny. I am so honored to have you on today.
Hi, Stephanie. Very nice to be with you.
So I would love to know more about your journey to starting the ministry that you have, Loving on Purpose. What led you to starting there?
Oh, gosh, I guess it's just that since I was a little kid, I've always had a pastor's heart, which means that I love people and I love to help people work problems out. I love to help people. And so I grew up in a non-Christian family, so I didn't get saved until I was 21 years old. Got married at 22, married a gal that was not raised in a Christian home either. And so, we just had a whole bunch of brokenness that we brought all into one spot. And we spent about 15 years trying to decide if we were going to stay married or not. In that 15 years, I was a social worker. I did a lot of work with families in crisis, foster children, adoptive care work, and a lot of counseling. And then I got my master's degree in social work, and eventually transitioned over into pastoral ministry. And Sherry and I, by then, were really trying to figure out how to build a safe, loving, godly family. And I think, for the last 16 years, Sherry and I have, we've been living in the marriage that we'd always hoped we would. But I think just the compassion of having a really tough marriage, a rough upbringing, just gave me a lot of drive to help other people really well. And so I've been a counselor for 25 years and a pastor for about 20 years. I guess that's probably in a nutshell what I'd say.
Yeah, and it's, I can definitely relate to having the heart to really serve and to help people. And I was a social worker. That's my background too. Mm-hmm. And I also worked with families in crisis. So, and all my personality tests say that I should be a pastor, which is really funny. But the coaching that I do also fits into that really, really well. So I understand that passion and that drive that's so satisfying to really pour into people. So I understand that you wrote a book, Keep Your Love On, mm-hmm. and I'd love to hear more about what this book is about and what inspired you to write it.
I think the inspiration really was in when you do a lot of counseling, you repeat yourself over and over and over and over, And so for years I would sit in an office and just see people every hour and I begin to realize, I just said the same thing to the last people that were in here. And after, decades of that, I thought, wow, I'm not sitting in offices anymore. I'm doing a lot more from the front. I'm traveling. I need to write this stuff down. And if somebody were going to sit in an office with me for 10 hours, this book is what I would say to them.
So what were some of the things that you noticed that I totally get that you start repeating yourself and saying the same message over and over again? So what is the core of what people need to hear from this book?
Well, section 1, it's actually 3 or 4 chapters about connection and creating and repairing and strengthening your connection with the people around you. And so I would challenge people in this section to decide whether they're going to live a powerful or a powerless life, meaning you live powerlessly, we end up believing that we're a victim of way too many circumstances, and we start looking for a bad guy, and we start begging for a rescuer, and you get that triangulation thing going on, and that's how we stay very irresponsible in the amount of disrespectful conversations we have and the amount of disrespectful relationships that we cultivate. So I invite people to move out of that and to actually believe that they're powerful, that they can choose, that they can decide, and they can create a life that they want to live in instead of get stuck with a life that somebody gives them. That's a lot of the first part of the first section around connecting. And then I think that people also have to be sure that they understand what their goals are in their relationships, because most people, especially married people, when they enter a counselor's office, they are so disconnected and they don't realize that they've changed their goal to distance. How much distance do I need from this person to keep myself safe? And when you do that, when you make distance your goal, you have to own that you've assigned in your head that the person that you're dealing with cannot do anything right, because everything they do, you twist it into serving your goal of distance and creating distance. And so getting people to move away from that and move back into a place of, I choose connection with you. I don't know how connected we're going to be, but my goal with you is connection. So I think those two things really primarily in the first section of connection is being powerful and having the right goal.
Yeah, I love that you say decide to live powerful or powerless. And I see that all the time. And I used to, my former self, pre-transformation, was very victim mindset and powerless. And God really put people in my life to help me think differently. And they really empowered me to change my situation, change my attitude, change the way I think, how I speak. And my life has radically been transformed just through the empowerment mindset. How would you, and I've also seen the connection or creating a distance, do you address how, if somebody realizes that that's what they've done and they, like, how to maybe break through some of the barriers or the walls they may have put up between them and that person, and how they can maybe create connectedness again?
Yeah, I think that probably the overall theme of our whole ministry at Loving on Purpose is to help people identify that we're in a war, and fear and love is the war. We're standing in the middle of a fear and love war, and we have to decide really, are we going to equip ourselves with love, or are we going to equip ourselves with fear? And so every tool that I offer people is really, how do you further equip yourself in love, that kind of love that chases off fear?
Okay. Yeah, because there's the perfect love casts out all fear. I've never heard it phrased that way, but it's very much the choosing between love or fear. And so I want to know, like, okay, I realize, like, trust may have been broken or frustrations at work in particular, like with your team. And, there can be some pretty frustrating situations at home or at work with a team or just really anybody you have a relationship with. And specifically in the work setting, is there a way that you can, how can you walk in love in the midst of a conflict? How can you keep that love on?
I think it's always going to be premised with, do I have a source of love? Do I have a conditional source? I mean, do I have to have a good day at home before I can walk in love? Does my love come from my performance? Do I have to do a good job before I can walk in love? Or do I have an unconditional source? And in my life, it's Jesus. It's being able to tap into the ongoing, never-changing love that I get in that relationship. So with that starting point and that foundation, I now have to choose. I have to choose, am I keeping my love on no matter what you do? Or am I going to let you control my love? Because my love is the very best part of who I am. When my love is on, the very best Danny I have is on the surface. And when I turn my love off, because you're having a bad day or because you were disrespectful or because you were selfish or because you were whatever, if I decide to turn my love off, what replaces that is fear. I am now scared. And the worst Danny I have is when he's scared. So I have to manage those two things in this war that I was describing earlier. I have to be ready, willing, and able to choose the love, to stay in charge of it, no matter what kind of day you're having.
That's really good. So do you have any tips as to, like, I realize it does take a maturing development process to get to that level, and I definitely agree a relationship with Christ really helps equip you with that and to walk this out. On days where it can be really emotional, there are some situations where you could be totally taken advantage of, or people are just downright rude and totally disrespectful to you. Some people may confuse walking in love with being a doormat and, not setting healthy boundaries. Or some people can take an extreme and think that their boundaries is this wall and this distance they've put between them and this person. And I know that there is a balance to walk in with that. Can you address maybe people that think there's ways you can express love without never confronting an issue? If that makes sense. Does my question make sense?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
The design of the Keep Your Love On book and workbook and the DVD series, all that, it's really aimed at you being a powerful person. So the idea that you would be a doormat is kind of like saying that a bulldozer is stopped by the pile of dirt in front of it. It's like, no, the bulldozer is powerful. I mean, it keeps moving no matter what you put in front of it. And the idea that you're powerful means that you manage you, that you're not trying to control other people, but you have a set of core values, you have a set of beliefs, you have a set of goals, and it's your responsibility to manage yourself towards those things always. No matter what other people's character is, no matter what other people's attitude or mood is, no matter how other people conduct themselves, I am still responsible to be a loving person, a loving husband, a loving father, a loving coworker, a loving employer. That's always my job description, is to stay in that mode. So with that being the case, when I run across somebody that is taking up, they're introducing irresponsibility or disrespect into the relationship, well, the way that I communicate either increases fear or increases a safe place or a I care about you message. So I'll be using the skills to manage myself to send the message, I care about you while we disagree. I care about you in this disrespectful situation. I care about you even though you're being irresponsible. I will manage myself. I don't know what you're going to do with you. And then if you handle that well or mishandle that, I have boundaries. I will let you know what I'm going to do as a result of what you've done. I'm not going to try to make you do stuff because I never believe I can control other people.
Yeah. You can only control yourself.
Really good day.
Which, controlling your emotions or frustrations, some people can let those run them or control them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it is a process of learning how to get those under control and to not be run by conditions. And I'm only pleasant if you're pleasant with me kind of thing. I've heard so many people say, well, I'm only going to show them respect once they respect me.
Which is foolish because, my respect is mine. Why would I give control of my respect to somebody who's out of control?
Very true.
I'm not going to give you control of any part of the best part of me. So my love, my respect, my honor, my trust, my truth, all those things, I'll manage those things no matter how bad a day you're having. I
love it. Your words are so true. I'm just laughing because I'm like, oh, so true. This is cutting, but that's okay. It's all right. I totally agree with you, and it is. And it's a process for me. I don't walk this out perfectly, but it is definitely a goal. I own my emotions, my feelings, my response to what you're going to do. To give that away, I don't want to give that away. I don't want to give that power away. I have the authority over this. And
some people give it away to a toddler.
Yeah.
And some people give it away to a teenager.
Or their dog.
Yeah. Some people give it away to somebody driving by in a car. It's just okay, why would you give that person that level of control?
Right. Yeah. Oh, I see the road rage. I see that a lot. I'm like, ooh, all right, I'll stay out of this.
A grown parent turn into a toddler right there in the spot. Oh my gosh, what's happening?
Right. So you also have another book coming out in November, I believe, which is called Foundations of Honor.
Yes.
And you've mentioned the word honor a couple of times, so I wanted to ask about this book, too, because this sounds like a fantastic book as well. Could you tell us what this one focuses on?
Well, the Foundations of Honor is really a follow-up to a previous book I wrote called The Culture of Honor. And it's just expanding it. It's a study guide that goes along with the DVD series of 10 sessions. There's a lot of momentum in this phrase or this idea of a culture of honor where we believe that we work together with other people who are powerful, that I don't control these people. And I think the idea that we can control other people, it shows up in how we use our anger, how we use our manipulations, our whatever. So if one person thinks they can control another person, they won't honor them. They won't treat them like they're powerful. They'll treat them like they can control them. And so a good friend of mine and a mentor in my life, Bill Johnson, he summed it up probably the best I've ever heard it, and he said that in a culture of honor, it's really where I treat another person as though they were Jesus. How would I treat you if you were Jesus? And as long as I can keep that in my mind, I will then be able to produce a culture of honor around me.
Wow. I'm going to write that down. That's so good. And they say as Christians we are to walk like Jesus walked. But I love that kind of reverse of if this person was Jesus, how would you behave? How would you treat them? So that's really, really powerful.
It is. And it kind of frames it up. I mean, if this person disagrees with me, and this is Jesus standing in front of me, how would I respond to Jesus? If this person has failed and made a mistake, and I'm looking at this person like they were Jesus, how would I treat them? If this person worked for me, or this person was my neighbor, or I'm married to this person, and I look at them and I literally see Jesus standing in front of me, how does it change the way I behave right now?
That's such a powerful analogy or just thought process, because in reality, he is there. Like, he is there in spirit. You may not be able to physically see him, and that's not to create like this walk on eggshells and tiptoe, and walk in condemnation at all. But it is like a accountability for me. That's a powerful accountability thought process right there.
Yeah.
So with work cultures, not all cultures are positive or healthy. So how could you start to cultivate a culture of honor? And how could you maybe be the light in that to try to extinguish that darkness out of there and start beginning to transform? I know it takes more than one person, but it can start with one.
Yeah, well, I think you just honor people really well. You become a unique relationship in their life. And classically, especially Christians, they think that their mission is to convince everybody around them to be like them. And nobody likes sales. Nobody likes being manipulated. And so when especially as a believer, I treat other people like they should be me instead of me treating other people like they are Jesus. Those are worlds apart. Completely different experience you're going to get from me, especially if your life's a mess. But I treat you with so much respect and so much honor. You won't understand me. And I think when Jesus walks through the New Testament, people are like, who is this guy? He does not treat us like the Pharisees. And it's such a unique experience for people when they cross paths with somebody who has their honor on towards them.
Yeah. Well, I would love to chat more about this. I'm just so fascinated by what you're saying. I'm like, oh, he's done talking. I have to come up with something else to say. So it's funny because those you guys that have listened to my show for a while, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, he rendered her speechless. Like, that's a first. So, yes. Well, I've really, really enjoyed this, Danny. It's just so awesome to actually have a conversation with you rather than hearing you through podcast and on the other side of the country, which is really such an honor to have you as a guest. I believe in your work and your mission and what you do. So I strongly encourage everyone to check out Danny Silk. How can they connect with you? How can listeners find more about your books, your ministry, and get connected with you?
LovingOnPurpose.com, the website, and then the Danny Lee Silk page on Facebook. Those are probably the two primary places, and really Facebook is probably the primary place where I communicate with folks. And if anybody messages me on Facebook, a personal message, I respond to 100% of those.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. That's pretty good. Well, I will make sure that lovingonpurpose.com and the links to your Facebook page and all other social media platforms as well is included in the show notes. And Loving on Purpose is thankfully very easy to remember. So anyway, thank you again, Danny. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks.
And I look forward to your Foundations of Honor book.
It was great chatting with you. If this person worked for me, or this person was my neighbor, or I'm married to this person, and I look at them and I literally see Jesus standing in front of me, how does it change the way I behave right now?
Well, there you have it. That was Pastor Danny Silk over at Bethel Church in Redding, California. His ministry is lovingonpurpose.com. He also is on Facebook. Like he said, he reads 100% of them, which is really, really impressive. So I encourage you to connect with him and check out his books. He's, as you heard, he just has just such powerful words and so much wisdom, and the way he even phrases his words just have left me speechless and just wanting more. And then I was like, oh, I gotta do a follow-up question. So it was kind of funny that I was so silent and fascinated by what he was saying. So anyway, I encourage you to connect again, lovingonpurpose.com. Those are in the show notes. And if you haven't done so already and you like this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and write a review. And leave a comment. What did you think about the show? What stuck out to you the most? What did you take away from this episode? I'd love to hear in the comments, and I'll talk to you all next week.